Hello everybody and welcome to Stellaris Beginner's Guide. So today we're going to go through the details of basically all of the stuff you use in Stellaris and how to kind of get yourself going, start off with, and give yourself a bit of a footing into Stellaris to get going and not die straight away, and make it a bit easier for yourselves. There's quite a lot in this game that is really hard to understand when you first are kind of presented with it, but once you get used to all the little bits and bobs, it is actually a little bit easier to understand the whole bigger picture of the game once these smaller little bits start clicking into place. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So for this playthrough, we're using the United Nations of Earth. I would strongly recommend you start off with one of the first races that they kind of have produced ready for you. The United Nations of Earth is probably the easier one to understand. It's about as closest to us as it can be, and you can kind of understand where the traits and everything come from. Once you're starting to get into like hive mind and stuff like that, it makes it a little bit harder, and of course those with the megacorps, it's even harder. So it gives you a little intro of who you've picked. You should know who you've picked them, but in case you've forgotten, it starts up with this little introduction with some BIOS that you can actually write the BIOS yourself. So you start off and you're on the Homeworld, or at least you're in the system of the Homeworld. For us, it's Sol, and obviously Earth is there. Nicely named things like Pluto, Mars, Io, Neptune, Titan. These are all little things here that you can kind of get yourself into, and if you want to do a bit of the in-depth look of the game, that's kind of nice. But you start off paused. So before we do anything, we want to do some stuff whilst we're still paused. Now we can click here to get the galaxy map, and it's a little easier to see where we are in the place. So that's our galaxy. Depending on what you selected for size will depend on how big this is, and how this is quite close together because I've picked the huge map. That comes with practice, you don't need to worry about that. But from here you can actually see what we've got in the system. So we have military, which is the stars, science vessel, which is the little science symbol, and obviously the construction one with the construction thing. Before anything, we need our construction ship, and we need to right click, and we can build mining stations. Now we're actually lacking minerals. What are minerals? They're the things that are kind of used to build stuff. So if you come back into here, you still have the construction ship selected, so you don't have to look for it. It's easy to find with these little symbols here, and you can actually go onto the first one, which is Juno, and you can build it manually. Now let's go into detail about what each of these things are, so we can kind of work out what the hell we're actually doing. Because yeah, it's great building a little mining station there, but what's that mining station going to do for us? Let's have a look. So our first thing we have is energy credits. That's kind of the money we use. It's the, well, as it says, it's the credits of the kind of galaxy that we have. And obviously that's quite important for us, because if you want to do anything on the market and stuff like that, you're going to need it, trades, etc. So that's our first one, energy credits, which is improved by doing this little thing where we build mines, and we can build on our planets on here, which we'll go into in a moment. So energy credits, job done. Minerals is the second thing we have, which is what we were just building a little mining station for here. Minerals is mainly used for building mining stations and research stations and the sorts. Also used to build other little bits and bobs on planets as well. Very important mineral. The first two are very important for your construction side of things, because they can work in tandem by going on to the marketplace and buying things that we need. Our third one is for our population, which is food. Food is improved by off-world things as well as on-world things, which you'll see throughout the game. Always good to keep a good supply of food. You can also boost your population using food as well. So if you go to your Earth decisions, and you have encourage planetary growth, very useful to get yourself going. So food is very underrated but very good. Our next thing is consumer goods. So as you can see, it does give you an idea of what they are on each tab if you hover over it, and how you can improve them. Now these help by giving obviously people good life, and they also improve your research as well. You can build buildings that turn consumer goods into research supplies and stuff like that. So very good to have a good supply of them as well, as always. Again, on the planet you can improve them, and there are sometimes mining facilities you can improve as well. You can also improve them by buying more in the market, as always. The next one, which is very, very important if you want to dominate people, is alloys. They are what you build star bases and your ships with. Alloys is very important. If you don't have much of that, you're going to struggle to build yourself a fleet, and you'll obviously get taken out. Our next one is influence. Now, obviously, you want to build this massive empire, but unfortunately you can't, because influence is the one thing that stops you. Now, there are things that you can do to improve your influence, but it is pretty set to +3. There are things that will increase it by half and stuff like that. So you just want to keep that up and going. Influence is used to build your star bases, so you can improve the size of your place. So if we get our construction ship here, I know it's busy. When you build a star base, even though it's not fully surveyed, it will require influence and alloys to build that star base. Very good to note. So very important to have. It also means you can claim things when you're trying to take over enemy positions. So obviously, if you start getting bogged down with enemy areas taking over you, you use influence to make claims, and then you go to war and win them claims. We'll cover that into more detail on another episode. Our next one is unity. Unity does go up and down by obviously building monuments and stuff like that, and you can gain it from various faction stuff as well. And that basically allows you to do traditions. Traditions, I will let you look, and we will probably look in a closer detail on another episode. But all these things give you things that are very, very useful. And it's down to you how you want to play your game as to which one you go for. Personally, I go for something like domination if I want to, because it helps by giving you extra housing and stuff like that. That's the one I go for, extra housing, and then you can have the resource output as well. You've also got expansion and discovery. Now, depending on how I feel about the start of the game, I will go for discovery as well over domination. As a matter of fact, recently I've been doing the discovery more than anything, because it improves your survey speeds, but it also has improved upkeep and stuff like that. It's just really useful to have, and it's definitely worthwhile having a look at. Good for your science as well. As you can see, research station output is increased by 10%, always good to have. So that's our unity. Our research, which is improved by building mines over research areas here. Research station in orbit. And obviously these directly influence our 3 researches, which we'll look at into a little bit more detail in a moment. So always good to have that improved. But don't be too hung up by that, because you will improve them by doing other different types of research, which I'll show you in a second. There's always one on the first one. So that's our research. Our next thing is our exotics. These are all useful in later game. If you start getting exotics in your area, just pinpoint where they are, remember where they are, and just keep them defended until you get up to researching them and using them. They're very good for selling as well in the marketplace, because they make bring good money, but they're also good to control for more researches and for better ships. So not to worry about that until later game. Now, the very important parts of the game are these last 6 here, really. Well, 4 or 5 really, but the other 2 are still good to know as well. These are the things that trip up players at the beginning, so it's worthwhile noting these more than anything, as your resources you can kind of get to grips with. It's this stuff here that's going to be a lot harder. So your first one is Empire Sprawl. Now, if you read that, you're looking at it going, oh well, what does it actually mean? Well, basically you get adaptations, you get different things that will allow you to improve your Empire Sprawl. Now, one of them is in the where is it? I know where it is. We'll show it you now. In here. So when you adopt a tradition, I think it's, I can never remember which one it is. Well, that's for your fleet, if you ever want to improve your fleet, so we'll go into that in a moment. Here we go, expansion. So there you go, courier network, administrative capacity increased by 20. Now, that improves your, as it says, administrative capacity by 20, which means you can have a bigger empire before it gives you a penalty. What does that mean? So if you start going out and going, I want to take over the whole world, the whole galaxy, and you start dominating all these here, and you start spreading further and further out, the more you start spreading, the higher this number will go. And as you go over the administrative capacity, it increases all the cost of things by 101%, 110%, 200%. It starts going up quite massively, and everything you do then costs more. Early on in the game, that can be the difference between having a comfortable game and crippling your resources. So bear that in mind. If worse comes to worse, defend an area with a fleet. Take them out, stop them from taking the area, and then move into that area at a later stage. It's a fine balance between going over it and keeping yourself under it. Your next one is your Empire Systems, which just tells you what systems you have. Obviously we only have the one. Your next one is your colonies, which is Earth, because again we've only got the one. Your population, which is always good to note. It gives you an idea of how big you're actually going. And the final two are very important ones: starbase capacity and naval capacity. Now, as you can see here, there's a little symbol you'll see. It's got to me it looks like a circle with two extra circles on the side. That dictates that this starbase is on its next level, which you can see it cannot be upgraded anymore. It is a starport. So, if it's an outpost, which is what you build, so when you go here and you build starbase outpost, that does not count towards your capacity. And at the moment we have a capacity of 3. If you build more than that, you increase the cost of all your starbases by an exponential amount, and it gets expensive, very, very expensive, and it gets harder to start spreading as well. So outposts don't cost you anything extra to your capacity, but when you upgrade them, they then start counting towards them. Why would you upgrade them then? Well, as a basic outpost, you can't really do much with it. As an actual starbase, you can start putting defense platforms and it'll hold your areas for you. Very good in chokehold points like this. Now this isn't the best one because it's got 3 going into 1. Here would probably be better. So that would be a good chokehold because there's only one way an enemy can come into it, so you can defend that area quite well with a starbase and a minimal fleet. As you start doing this, you'll notice they can come in from all these angles here, and they can just bypass your starbase. Worthwhile noting. There's actually 4 on that, so it's even harder. Building a nice starbase there would be good because you're defending all this area here. So they can only come in from another angle. Again, here, good chokehold. There's not too bad. You got 2 into 1, but it still would be good because it stops them going in and it gives you a good spread as well. So, starbase of capacity, bear that in mind. As you can see, it says it will cause your starbases to have an increased upkeep cost. It's very expensive. Now that increases your starbase capacity, increases by your population and how much own systems you have. So another reason why you want this population higher. Next one is your naval capacity. Again, if you go over your naval capacity, you will start incurring a lot more cost with your fleet, and it gets expensive very, very quickly. So bear that in mind and make sure you don't go over that early on. Or if you do go over it, then have it in your mind that you're going to go over it to kind of defend an area or attack an area, and you're going to lose some to bring yourself back under it. Always good to do that as well. So that explains the basics on the kind of the resources and its limitations there as well. Let's just have a quick look at research that we mentioned. So you get 3 researches. You get your physics, you get your social, and you get your engineering. And as mentioned, you can improve them by 20%. By that one there, I always like to go for these ones because they're good. You can do it for, I mean, it is random, and it'll give you like tier 1 randoms, and then it starts increasing tier 2s and stuff like that. There's various things you can put in. It's down to how you want to play. There is a good solid way of how to improve very fast, but we won't go into that today. We'll just go into what we want to do, and there we go. So our research is on its way. So what's next? Well, we need our science ship to go out and start surveying. We're still paused. We haven't started the game yet. So what we're going to do is select our science ship, and if you press the shift key, keep hold of the shift key, right click, survey, and you want to give your ship a nice bit of an area to survey here. I construction ship is already on its way constructing the mine. Don't do the research at first. Leave the research until you get a good capital on your money and your minerals as well, because building them is just a waste of money early on, because obviously we haven't got much to get ourselves going with at the moment. So just build on the mines, which is for energy credits and for minerals. Everything else here, nothing to worry about right at the start of the game. Now, the one thing I will point out, if you are progressing quite well, the one thing I will cover is this here, is your sector settings. Now, if you want to concentrate more on your warfare and expanding and not having to worry about your planet construction, you have something called the planets and sectors menu here. Sector settings, you can choose how you want your planets in that sector to be built based off. A balanced focus is usually pretty good to make sure you've got a good all round on everything. Your research, your construction, your costings, everything. It's a good balance. And then you can improve either your production, your manufacturing or your research, which will strongly go into one of them 3 fields. I'd advise against using these as your homeworld's sector, because if you do, you'll find yourself losing a lot of money in various other things and only having them areas covered. Always aim for a balanced. So you've selected a balanced sector, you can then transfer resources. This will do it by 100 at a time. Now obviously don't do it straight away because you've got no money to start off with, but as you start to get a surplus in supplies, if you start popping that in there, then it will start building buildings for you once they become available. Now the Stellaris does make it a little bit easier for you to understand that, as it will tell you here building slots available. Now, playing this at the beginning myself and with friends of mine on multiplayer games, the first thing everybody wants to do is start building on these here, and they'll start shoving buildings on there. It's a waste of money. Do not do it at the start. You don't need to. If you're building a building there, you could actually hinder your progress within the planet. And what I mean by that is if you build an alloy foundry, for example, you're actually going to take one of the populations, one of the worker populations off the mining district, and he will move on to the alloys building, meaning your minerals will drop, which makes it a lot harder for you to then build various other things, because you need the minerals. The alloys, yes you do need, but you need minerals more than alloys because they're what convert into alloys. So bear that in mind. Don't go building your planets up fully. It doesn't matter if it's got a slot available. If you don't need it at the time, don't build it at the time. It gives you an idea of what you've got here. You've got unemployment here. We have no unemployment, so we don't need another building. As you start to get unemployed populations, start putting more buildings in. As you start getting overcrowding, or you start getting lack of housing, chuck another district in. Then buildings cost you an upkeep. Try and keep your costs down. Same with star bases. If you've got an available slot, it will tell you don't go building them if you don't need them. And our star bases are one of the things where you can really build how you want to build it. It's totally up to you. The first star base is already pre-built with a shipyard, and it keeps it separate for you so you can build your ships. Always keep a shipyard because you're going to need one. So that covers the basics of Stellaris, and that's all I want to go through on this guide, as it's just really covering the basics of how to get going. There's various other things we can learn to do, various other things we can do on the menus here, which we'll go through on the next guide. We'll go into more details like into your contracts and stuff like that, and how you actually play Stellaris and what it's all about, and the outcome of the game and the various years as well. With all this information, you can then go away and start setting up your own games, and you can kind of understand what it is you're picking when you're picking, when does endgame start. Because right at the beginning you're kind of thinking, well, endgame doesn't really mean much to me. To everybody else it does. And it's one of them things you need to understand to be able to then start learning it. And then you can start building yourself your own race and build it based off its own traits. And you can start dominating a galaxy with a gameplay style of your own that you'd like to take. For example, you can have United Nations of Earth, you can do Federation, you can do Imperium of Man. All them things are all set in Stellaris, and they are brilliant. So thank you very much everybody for tuning in on this guide. Hopefully it's been useful for you. Hopefully you've learned enough to get yourself going and understanding what it is that's affecting you if you have tried playing in the past. If not, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will get back to you with any details that you might need. And obviously I will cover it in the next guide if it has been missed, and hopefully you can get going on your game and actually start learning things yourself as you're progressing through just using this guide alone. The next guide will cover more on this menu, and we'll cover more on this menu here, and we'll start looking at doing fleets and more what we're going to do with the construction vehicles. So thank you very much everybody for tuning in. Until next time, take care for now. Bye bye.